What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, we're going to be looking back at Assassin's Creed 2. Didn't start at the beginning. Normally, when I do franchises, I try to start at the original. I missed the 15-year anniversary of AC1. What can I say? This is the 15-year anniversary for AC2. I keep saying it. We're kind of on a streak. You know, you got Borderlands and Batman Arkham and Dragon Age and so many freaking games. 2009, I'm really beginning to believe, I kind of already believed it, is one of the best years we've ever gotten, period, in gaming. So many great franchises, and this one a little bit different, right? When you talk about the Dragon Ages of the world and Batman, I mean, Batman's an IP, right? But you think of Dragon Age, well, like that's a new franchise, right? You got to kind of come up with everything. This one's a bit different because it's piggybacking off of Assassin's Creed 1, but this is really where Assassin's Creed like blew up, right? At least in my opinion. This is the one that I think many people look back on very, very fondly. I still really like 1 personally, and but you think of Ezio, right? If you think classic AC, classic, right? You think of Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Revelations. It's my favorite if you kind of just like bundle it up into a trilogy. I mean, it is kind of a trilogy, right? But Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, maybe you look at it that way. This is an amazing game. Now, has it aged all that well? I feel like we're going to do something. I've kind of done it before in videos, but I don't do it every time. Kind of want to look at that angle because we're going to talk a lot about Assassin's Creed 2. I'll go over my thoughts and all that jazz, but does the game still hold up now? I think it's kind of actually a complicated question to be honest. I don't think it holds up. I'll answer myself. I'll spoil it early. I don't think it holds up perfectly. I think largely it does, but there's some sections or some elements to this game that, boy, oh boy, it had me rethinking things, you know what I mean? And we'll get there as this video goes. So I want to do, firstly, I just want to show it to you. If I have the games physically, which I try to have as many as possible, I like to show it to you guys. But come on, classic, right? Literally, this is like one of the most classic art designs, you know, cover arts that we've ever seen in our freaking lives, right? Front, back, I mean, just so freaking good. Does it have oh my god, 2009, I guess it still would, right? A little plain. Nothing too special, but of course it's got the great cover, right? Cover, and then Uplay. Oh my god, who knows about Uplay nowadays, right? Everybody, but back then maybe not so much. Okay, so we go to 2009, right? Now, I've told the story a little bit before, so I'll kind of like do the condensed version. I get my PS3, and I actually did start with AC1, okay? So I got my PS3 June of 2009. This game came out, a couple months later, but I did not start here. I really did start with Assassin's Creed 1. I remember renting it. I think I played it potentially over the summer because I remember myself sitting on the floor, my mom cooking dinner, and it felt like summertime, like I wasn't in school. And then eventually I did get Assassin's Creed 2, and I freaking loved it. I mean, I was about as like a die-hard Assassin's Creed fan as you could get with 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations. And 3 really hurt me. I can't wait. One day we will do a retrospective on Assassin's Creed 3. I really want to see what I think about it now because, man, when I played it, I really didn't like it. I really did not like Khan. But, it's not about Assassin's Creed 3 here. It's about 2. I really liked 2. And I think it built on itself with Brotherhood. I think Brotherhood, at least right now, is my favorite Assassin's Creed game ever created. But 2 really sets the foundation. Now, replaying it, one of the initial kind of feelings that I take away, again, I mentioned, does things, still hold up? And we're going to talk about elements of that. But it feels smaller and more compact than you remember it being, right? Because this was like a giant open world. And you think about Ubisoft games and like the Ubisoft isms, right? You think about that modern day and you think about all the question marks on the map and the 500 things to do and games that take 100 hours. This game felt like that in a good way. I wouldn't say like in a negative way. This game felt so big, so large, so much to do. You could just lose weeks and weeks to this game. And in reality, that's actually not true, right? And I mean, you guys will have to let me know, your thoughts in the comments, but replaying it, it's actually highly digestible. I'm not saying it as a negative. It's just something that walking away from it, I think differently of the combat. We'll talk about that in a second, but I think back and I think, man, the game felt bigger. One example I have, okay, let me give you like an actual example, is the villa, and it's upgrading it. I upgraded that thing in like a second. I mean, I like to exaggerate, but I really did it quickly, right? You just use the money that comes in, right? You invest it into the villa. You get paid by, I think, every 20 minutes or so. reinvest, and before you know it, there's actually not that many things to buy. There's not that many wells to fix. The bank, there's only one bank. You upgraded 3 times, you're good, right? There's not that many things. And again, I don't see that as a negative. I'm not saying it as a negative. It felt cool to be like, it felt like forever back then. I remember doing the villa. I remember thinking that was such a cool idea. I don't even know if I played a game because it was, my genres were pretty limited back in 2009, right? I'm getting into the PS3. I mean, like action adventure games, right? That was kind of like my limit, maybe platformers, stuff like that. I never even knew that was a thing in any game. And I just remember it taking forever. Like, it felt like there was a list of 30 things to upgrade. You know what I mean? And now you look at it and you're like, oh, it's 12 things. You can finish it in 2, 3. I played this game over the stretch of 3, 4 days. And between day 2 and 3, I check in on the villa a couple times and it's done. You know what I mean? And I mean, you have money just flowing in. You're having hundreds of thousands of dollars or florins, right? And it's unbelievable. So, that just kind of being an example. It's the same thing, Eagle points, I would say, is maybe one element where it's like, okay, this feels familiar. I think there's 73, and it feels like it. It's something, again, I didn't really notice till replaying it, where a lot of the buildings are the same. Now, I think they recreated, and again, this is where Assassin's Creed is starting to build itself, right? You got the Desmond stuff, and then you have the assassin stuff, and we'll talk about both, but this is really where it starts to come in on its own with, oh my God, they respect how things look. I'm Italian, if you guys can't tell. I'm 90% Italian and then a little Scottish, but they did such a great job, right? And Ezio really captures that kind of feel as well. Everything does, though, right? The characters do, their outfits and just the architecture. I mean, that's a fancy word, right? That's probably what I'm thinking of, but things look really, really good. However, pro con, things look really good. You feel like you're there. There are some buildings that, I mean, okay, they're very legit, right? There are some massive chapels and things like that. And then, a lot of the Eagle points are the exact same tower 25 times, right? It's maybe 4 building types multiplied by at least 10 each, and then you have a couple of legit places that are very, very serious, right, where it's going to take you a while to actually climb up it. But again, I don't know, it felt cool. This entire game was honestly a trip for me because I remember so much about, I remember the story. I remembered what these buildings looked like as you're climbing, or the Altair, when you have to go through the different tombs or whatever you call them. There's 6 of them in all, I believe. I did it. Again, I remember it being harder, you know what I mean? I guess I was 13 or 12 or whatever, so I remember it being harder, these platforming sections and some of the timed runs. It was a lot harder back then than it was now, but I unlocked the Altair stuff in sequence or chapter 9. I didn't even do the DLC episodes, and I have the best armor you could ask for or whatever. So I don't know, it's a very special game. I know I'm kind of jumping everywhere, but my main thoughts are this is a very special game. This was Assassin's Creed really stepping into its own and being something very, very powerful. And there really, at least at the time, there was not really a weak spot with this. It felt full. And that's something, again, it feels different now. Feels different now because you have games that are 6 times the size, and they're, instead of 20 hours, they're 100 hours, or they're about 5 times, the length of it. So it feels different looking at it from nowadays, but again, it's refreshing. I always talk about it, really not just on this channel, but all the channels. It's always about quality over quantity, right? You don't need every game to be 100 hours, and at the same time, right, thinking about it in the same way, this was that kind of game back then. Games that were pushing 20, 25, 30 hours were some of the longest games out there. You didn't have, I don't even think Persona 4, Persona 5, 110-hour type experience. You know what I mean? There were just very, very few. So in Assassin's Creed being 20 or so hours, it felt meaty, but it also felt like quality. There was quality and quantity where, again, you have the villa stuff. You had opportunity to just kind of go and do whatever you felt like, right? The mission design is actually really, I would say, pretty darn good in this game. I remember, you think back to Assassin's Creed 1 and some of the major gripes, right? With some of the templates of okay, you're going to do 3 or 4 things. Who remembers eavesdropping, right, in Assassin's Creed 1? And, that's there every now and then in Assassin's Creed 2, but they're pretty good at mixing things up. You will be doing some reconnaissance. You'll be doing some flat out fighting. You'll be doing some horseback stuff. stuff. You'll get Leonardo da Vinci, right, to make you a flying machine. Like there's quite a bit of just variety in general to the main missions and even the side stuff, in this game. You'll have like the courier missions, you'll have the assassination contracts. Those are, roughly the same. There's maybe like 3 or 4 different things you'll be doing in them. But again, like you think to 2009, I mean, heck, you even think about now, it's a pretty okay amount of variety. And here's the thing. It's not 100 hours, so when it is 20 hours in 2024, and yeah, some things repeat, right? But it still feels rather digestible. You feel like, yeah, I'm not really getting bored, and that's something that I felt when playing it, where it's like, yeah, I'm having fun, and they're doing enough to keep the variety going all the time. Now, is it without weaknesses? No, and I want to talk about some of these. These will lead to different, elements of the game. So one thing I'll actually say is not a weakness, and I've stood by this for a while, the Desmond stuff. I actually have always been a small-time fan of the Desmond stuff. Again, like playing Assassin's Creed 1, a couple months into getting my PS3, I didn't know, like it was not popular, but a lot of people didn't like the Desmond stuff in really any of the games. It's also kind of popular to not like the Desmond stuff, and I mean, look, is it riveting? Is it like the most exciting part of all time? No, but I think they were kind of doing some cool stuff with like the real world story and like where it was going with Abstergo and the Templars and all of that stuff, and like even seeing like Kristen Bell like in a video game, right? It's like kind of that's interesting. Nolan North, right, as Desmond. So I actually don't mind those sequences, and you're not in them all that often, like actually at all. I know Assassin's Creed 1, you go in and out way more than Assassin's Creed 2. They toned it back, right? It's another thing, like you think of 1, they listened quite a bit, and there was a turnaround, I think 09, right? I think Assassin's Creed 1 was 07, 2 years. They messed with like the mission variety, right, to really try to like freshen it up. They listened to the real life or like the current time, right, stuff. They did quite a bit. Then they built, like massive, entirely new environment, create a character that's just got so much spunk and just spontaneity. Is that a word? I'm using some pretty foreign words to me right now. But, making Ezio, like they did a really good job in such short time. You would never get that kind of thing nowadays, right? Okay, a couple weaknesses, though, I do want to throw out. I mentioned like the buildings and stuff. Let's just kind of like transition into climbing. So it's much better than 1, right? I think about 1 and you think about reach. Like it's just so slow. It's just it's really, really bad in that way. 2 is pretty good, but man, here's the thing, right? Because they give you a little bit more freedom and, you can do like the back jump and, different kinds of things, right? You almost feel, especially if you're playing it now, right? Not even 2009, you play it now. You feel like you got a little bit more control of Ezio than you really do. Because this game is still terrible at doing what you don't want it to do. Especially, look, it's really at its weakest when you're doing chases. And I don't know how we got through it, back then. I don't know how they made it, and they watched it, and they played it, play testing, and they got through it because if there's a thief on the street, good luck catching them, especially if they get into like the running patterns, because good luck tackling them. You're just not going to be able to do it. There's that one mission where, and I don't think I captured it, so I'm sorry about that. But there's one mission. It's to win the mask, right? It's for the masquerade, and you have to do that capture the flag thing. I hated it because it's like you're trying to get there, and I didn't see any good paths, so I was like almost killing myself jumping off of these massive buildings. Then heaven forbid the AI were to grab the flag. Good luck catching them, and then if you do, good luck. Just the way Ezio moves, right? Like he's got some like shoulder shrug action going on, and look, I'm kidding for a lot of it, or I'm trying to make light of it, but it's frustrating. Like don't let this facade fool you. That is a very weak part of this game. There is a lot of parkouring that's not very good. There are some moments where you feel like you can jump and grab something and you just don't. And then maybe you will at some other point during your climb. There's really no rhyme or reason. And I'm not saying like, there is the moment later on in the game where you're able to do kind of like that elevated jump, which is a game changer. But still, there's moments where like the block is right there. It's within his arm's reach and he will not grab it. And you'll be screaming at your TV, Ezio, move your right arm to like 2 o'clock. Just move it from 4 o'clock to 2 o'clock and grab the freaking ledge. And he won't do it. And so, you're just left to, okay, well, I guess I'll shimmy left and see like if he'll eventually figure it out. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of pivoting. If you want to pivot in this game, again, God bless you, because you're not going to be able to. You will, I jumped off and eliminated Eziolettes so many times, countless amount of times. I would be chasing somebody, I'd want to like cut them off, right? So it's like, oh, there's a platform right there. Well, if I aim it just right, I will hit that platform. Like it's an okay distance. Well, I'll do it, and then he'll miss. he'll hit the ground, and he'll hit the ground a little too hard, right? So that is a huge weak, and it can get frustrating. I mean, it really can. I think to Assassin's Creed 1, and again, being like a newbie gamer, that was something I remember coming away from that, where it's like, man, it's just very frustrating to move him. And it really is, it's almost worse in 2, because at least right now, I feel like I have more control, and he feels a little bit more floaty in a good way, and then he'll miss every ledge, humanly possible. So that's one big one. I would really only say there's 2 weaknesses with that, with this game. That's one. Second one, this is maybe a little controversial, is the combat. Now, I've actually been a defender of the combat of the old AC games forever. I've always preferred them over the combat of the new ones. I know that's been my position. I don't hate how Origins and I don't hate how they feel, okay, or how they play. It's just not really for me. I mean, that's kind of it. There's really not much more explanation I can give. However, I have always taken it that one step further and said, I actually I think it's better in the old ones. I'm here to say that I think I'm wrong, especially, or at least, in the early AC games. It's been a while. I mean, I played like Black Flag, I think a year and a half ago. Like, that was pretty okay. Maybe like the Syndicates and Unities aren't that bad. Assassin's Creed 2's combat is not very good, right? It is the whole waiting for them to attack you. Like, there's no way around it. I like the variety. I like all the different weapons. I like that you can literally fight with your hidden blades, right? It's really cool. And the executions are 10 out of 10. There's so many of them. There's multiple weapons, and there's executions for each of them. It's cool, and it also, again, like, brings me back to that era of running around and sticking the blade, right, and just like walking away and then getting into a fight, pulling out your sword, pulling out your dagger, doing the smoke bomb, and then taking out 2 of them, and like knocking like, kind of the classic Ezio move, right, where it's very aggressive, right? He'll like push it in, and then he'll slam both of them down. It's iconic. It's really cool. But largely, most of the combat is standing there and waiting for the AI to figure it out. And there will be times where you will just stand there and nobody will attack you. You can have 8 people around you and nobody will freaking move. And you're left to, okay, well, like, some weapons do better against some enemies, right? So, but if you're in the wrong weapon type, you can still handle it. You just have to like wait for them to attack and do your parrying and your counters, right? But the issue is the enemies don't really attack you. So towards the end of the game, I started to strategize and did the weapon per the enemy, right? Like, try to like figure it out. But early on, most of the game, I just used my sword. And so I kind of like got that experience, right? Where it's like, it works against most enemies and stuff. And you can really get away with it against anybody. But you're going to have to sit there. You're really going to have to sit there. And I don't think that's aged well at all. And I'm not saying necessarily, I'm not saying I like even like or love the new AC combat. I don't really know if either of them fit. I don't really know what a good combat system for Assassin's Creed would even look like. Maybe some sort of blend of the two, but I can tell you, like, my opinions change. I used to think you watch the gameplay of AC2 and you think it looks cool. And it does. Like, it looks cool, those executions. They are iconic, and I remember watching trailers. I remember watching IGN gameplay. Even the trailer. Remember the trailer for AC2 was incredible. But the gameplay, leading into Assassin's Creed 2, I remember seeing it. Or even, I guess Assassin's Creed 2 was maybe already out by the time I saw it. But it looks so awesome. Then you play it, and it's a little bit different there. But to be honest with you, those are the 2 weaknesses. Now, they're big parts of it because you're constantly moving and you're constantly fighting. So I mean, every couple minutes, or maybe every 5 minutes, you're reminded of some sort of weakness with the game, right? Where it's like, the climbing could be a little bit better, but it's the start of something. That's something that I like doing these retrospectives. I like looking back because I really try to keep that mindset where it's like, we can be critical and I can talk about this stuff, but you also then have to, how do you think about it? Can you look at it a different way and say, hey, well, think about it from 2009. Think about it from kind of like the building blocks, right? Like really starting something special. And that's what this game did. It started something special. everything else is a positive, right? Again, like the visuals, the location, Ezio, the story. I mean, we all remember the opening of Assassin's Creed 2, right? It's not as big. I remember the tower being bigger. I thought the tower that you climb with your brother just felt a little bit bigger in the original, and then it would show, the logo of Assassin's Creed 2, the beautiful music, right? The camera kind of panning out, so good. But I just remember it being taller. I don't know what it is, but the opening is so good. The the conspiracy, right? And how his family fits into that, and just everything that happens, and like I don't want to say the word, like the spree, let's say, that you go on. I mean, you eliminate so many high class type of people. You're eliminating religious figures, you're eliminating politicians. Politicians will like come in to visit and they won't make it out alive. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. And I mean, I like that, because if you were doing that, if you're taking out like 15 or 20 of these people, right, back to, which you kind of are taking them out back to back, but there's time jumps, right? Like this takes place, I believe, over maybe like 10, 15, maybe even more years. I forget the actual years, but there's jumps. There'll be jumps of 3 years sometimes, and it's like I wonder what Ezio was doing, during those. Sometimes you figure it out, but sometimes you don't. Even like the DLC, I remember, I just wanted to kind of like tell this story. You remember the DLC chapters, right? So they took 2 of the later chapters. They're just not there. When you look at the trophy list, it just skips it, right? And they eventually or later on packaged it as DLC. They're pretty solid. So just want to kind of throw it in. It's just something you don't really get, where like part of the game is missing. It's not vital. It's kind of like a passing of the hand of like the apple, and just some like minor conflicts, I guess, that you don't really need to do, I guess, if you play the full game and you skip it. But it is included, because I played the Ezio collection on PlayStation Plus. It's included in that, so you just kind of chronologically go through the whole thing. But they really nailed so much about this game. I know the last little section here was talking about the negatives. Oh, this game is so special. It really is a situation of, at least in 2009, quality and quantity. Like, again, like this is a longer game. It's kind of refreshing now, and I think that's actually not a good thing, looking at the gaming environment we live in now. When a game that's 20 hours is refreshing to me, that it's so short, should tell you something about how many 50 to 100-hour games there are nowadays. But again, I think it does both really well. I mentioned in the beginning, just the mission variety. Like, that's something that, playing it now, much older and maybe wiser, right? Like, I've played a lot of games, right? So you try to analyze different things, you realize, and one thing I was really trying to look at was, they mix up the variety quite a bit, and just in terms of what you're doing. Sometimes you're just kind of looking around, or it'll be more of like a conversational mission. Early on, it's a lot of tutorial stuff. Let me show you how to steal from people. Let me show you how to do this or that. But as it goes, it mixes it up. I mean, look, ultimately, it relies on taking people out stealthy, and then taking people out sometimes in like the more like head-on type way, right? That's a lot of it. It's about getting from point A to point B, but it's leaning on what they were trying to do at the time with Assassin's Creed. Ultimately, I thought it was super cool. Oh, and let me throw out this before I end this video. The ending. Oh my God. When breaks the fourth wall, right? Well, breaks the fourth wall / I guess not really, because she's talking to Desmond, right? And Ezio's like, who's Desmond? What's going... I remember... I don't know if I saw that on YouTube before I feel like I remember watching a video of it, but I just remember the first time I saw it being like stuck. Like, I thought it was so cool, right? And in a way, if you ended it right there and you never did Ezio again, it's kind of a very weird, and like it breaks things in terms of the ending, right? Like it breaks this kind of like pacing that the game has, because it's all about Ezio, and you're kind of building up this lore of Templars and the apple and all this stuff, right? Like this kind of like ultimate power. And then you get to the end, and then it very much turns it and says, hey, those 10 minutes we focused in on Desmond, we're talking to him now. Ezio doesn't really matter. And Ezio literally just she tells him, like, this doesn't matter. I'm not talking to you. Like, I'm talking to him. Like, he's just pushed aside in actually a very funny way. But you almost feel like, man, like, if you ended it there, it would be almost anticlimactic. I think that's kind of the word that I'm looking for. That's kind of the feel you get, while also feeling like, yeah, this is a really cool ending. But in terms of, like, if you think about it just from Ezio's point of view, it's like, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? So you really needed Brotherhood and Revelations to kind of age him, and you'll continue to wrap that stuff up. So love doing it, love playing it. I did get frustrated. I mean, like some of the combat parts, some of the climbing parts. Again, you don't know how many times I jumped off and went the wrong direction. Or I mean, I don't think I went in the wrong direction. I think Ezio went in the wrong direction. But I really, really like this game, and I still think Brotherhood's my favorite. But that's thinking about it now. So I wonder. I mean, I remember the systems of Brotherhood, and so we'll see. We'll see. I think Brotherhood turns 15 next year, so I'll probably be playing that for a video on this channel next year. Before I get going, I want to go over some comments written in by you guys. All you have to do to be featured in the show is to be a member of either tier on the main channel. Every single video you guys have a say in, and you guys can write in your thoughts. And then the last video of every month is kind of just an open thing for anybody that's on these channels. So let's go over what you guys are thinking for Assassin's Creed 2. From Elvis, I remember playing this game only once. Honestly, feels like a millennia ago. And considering the horrible graphics, I don't know how to explain it. I enjoyed it so much. I go back and forth riding the horse and just try to enjoy the super pixely nature around and also collect money for Ezio's base. I specifically loved it since I was intrigued to roam between Florence and other places since my sister lives there, and it is really amazing. So maybe I'm biased, but yeah. From Juan, I jumped into the AC wagon right around AC Brotherhood was releasing. Obviously, everyone was talking about it, and I wanted to be part of the discussion. I remember a friend that told me, go play the games, you owe it to yourself, but for the love of God, play AC1 first, because if you do otherwise, your experience will be ruined. At the moment, I thought he meant the story would be ruined, but after playing AC and starting AC2, I instantly knew he meant gameplay. I remembered being blown away by the parkour mechanics, the stealth and assassinations, the world, everything in AC1, but AC2 is 1,000 times better in every way. Wicked says, probably one of my favorite games ever. I remember picking it up used at GameStop, knowing nothing about it and falling in love with it after one of my birthdays. Definitely was not parent approved, but I played it every chance that I got. And then Magica talked about start of the Ezio journey. Did you do the original version or the later versions for the collection, etc.? So I did the Ezio one. Not played this one in ages. I think when I first started it, it didn't have loads of spare time to go for 100%. Still not sure if I ever did that. Need to check if I started the PS4 version and trophies. Yeah, so this was actually, I was playing through the Ezio collection, so I got all the trophies. I mean, I didn't 100% it, but I got a bunch of trophies. I'm raising my trophy level quite highly. So yeah, I was, I think it looked better. I think, I don't know if it's a remastered version. I don't really consider it that, but I think it definitely looks better than what the original Assassin's Creed 2 was like. And then even to Juan's comment, we spent a lot of this video kind of talking about AC1 to AC2, but just to hammer it home, like AC2 is better in every way. I truly believe that. The Desmond parts are better. The Ezio I do think is better than Altair, although I really do like Altair, and I'm happy that he kind of got to come back, I guess, right, for Revelation. So yeah, I mean, the parkouring, the combat, everything is absolutely better in 2. It's just, as we talked about, is it great by today's standards? Maybe not so much. And even to the point of the visuals and the original Assassin's Creed 2 to the Ezio one to Elvis's point, it's interesting. Maybe I should have played. I have, like I showed you guys earlier, I have the PS3 version, and maybe I should have fired that up just to make sure. I mean, I remember it looking good. I honestly remember it being one of the prettier type games at the time. You look at any like the pictures or like the promotional stuff for this game, it all looks incredible. It still looks incredible now, including the cover of just Ezio, everything kind of blurred out in the background. Like, it looks really, really nice. And I wouldn't say it looks bad. Like, you look at the character models now, even now in 2024, you look at what these characters are looking like, they don't look terrible. It could be a lot worse, to be honest with you, right? So, I definitely get that, but I actually think the game looks quite good, even by today's standards. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.